historical preservation. But we're going to go ahead and get started. I'm going to begin by kind of outlining for you all what my presentation is going to cover today. We're going to talk about the Fox Theater a little bit. We're going to talk about the Fox Theater Institute, which actually is not a separate organization. We are a department of the Fox Theater. We're going to talk about some of our support and some of our success stories that we've had across the state and in here in DeKalb County. And then I'm going to highlight for you all some DeKalb County theater highlights, historic theaters. I'm going to preface this for the Ken Thomases in the room and the historians and archivists, this is not a deep dive into historic theaters today. This is an overview. I encourage you and welcome you to do some of your own research and find out more for our folks here at the DeKalb History Center. I always like to begin by asking how many of you have been to the Fox Theater before? I love seeing that. Most of the room. If not, we welcome you to come for a visit. As you might know, our mission is to preserve and share the Fox Theater. It's very straightforward. We've had that job for now almost 100 years. And we also really take joy in the fact that we want to be Atlanta's preeminent cultural icon that enriches the human spirit. And what that means is when you come to the Fox Theater, you walk away with a sense that you've been somewhere in community, that you've enjoyed a show, that maybe you've come to a tour and learned some things about our building, about the larger context of Atlanta, but that we enrich the experience that you have in the arts and also in historic preservation. We are an independent theater. We're a nonprofit organization. We're not a corporation. We're devoted to preservation practices, not only in our own building, but for all historic theaters that we work with. We're governed by a board of directors. We're a self-sustaining operation, which means we have survived without being bought out by conglomerates that do large-scale ticket operations nationally and internationally. We're very proud of the fact that for almost 100 years we've been able to sustain ourselves. Also, we're entrepreneurial in spirit, and that really goes back to our history with Atlanta landmarks that saved and rehabilitated the Fox Theater, which I'm going to talk about a little bit briefly. That's a whole separate presentation in and of itself. These are just some general highlights about the Fox Theater. Many of you may not know, but we are a National Historic Landmark. We were designated in 1976. We're also the anchor of a National Register District, the Fox Theater National Register District. We're locally landmarked. We're very proud of the fact that we were one of the earliest landmark buildings in the city of Atlanta, which means we are protected, and we take that protection very seriously. We opened on Christmas Day, so none of us at the building ever have a hard time remembering our birthday. We celebrate it every year. Some years when we hit big milestones, we celebrate it a little bit differently. We have 4,665 seats. Those seat numbers change a little bit when we have a Broadway show versus a rock and roll mix. When you come to the Fox, you might see in the middle, some people do the stage lights from top and some do them on that orchestra level, so that number can fluctuate. We have between 200 and 220 performances a year. The reason I put 220 is because we were closed during COVID for 17 months. We lost quite a bit of funding, as you can imagine, mostly from our main client, Broadway Across America, and we're building back up some programming. We have 72 stars in our ceiling, and if you've been on the Fox tour, you know that one is actually raised in the bottom of the Coca-Cola glass. That is true, it's not a myth. It's a cover that's there. We average a yearly attendance of 600,000 individuals. We pop 4.5 tons of popcorn annually for you all. We love to eat the popcorn at the Fox. And as you know, we serve it at all of our events, often to the dismay of our restoration team and our facilities team. And then we spend over in that area 1.5 annually on restoration and facilities improvements a year. And I want to mention where some of that funding comes from. Every time you buy a ticket to the Fox Theater, you are charged a restoration fee. We collect that fee and we put it back into our building. That's why we believe when you come to the Fox that we try to make it as beautiful as we can for you, to retain the historic features and make sure that that's a priority. Also, we have 5 total entertainment venues, not just the auditorium which you sit in. We have ballrooms, and we have our new Marquee Club that opened in 2018. So I took a little bit which is 7 floors high. The other tower is 8 floors high. When you look at the Fox Theater, before I ever came to work there, I don't know that I really thought about the backstage and all those areas. But we are on site there. We were founded in 2008, and this is our 15th year of working across the state and the Southeast. And we offer grant funding, operations advice, technical assistance, and consultation. So not just brick and mortar assistance, but also how to operate your theater, how to get people in your seats, how to sell tickets, and those other practices. We really began from this need in Georgia. When people see the Fox succeeding, I think they call and would say, well, can you help us find a vendor for plaster? Can you help us with a ticket option? Can you do these things? And those calls really were increasing as funds were cut and other funding. We saw that really far cry from across our state and the Southeast to get this kind of assistance. So our board of directors always really had the intent to pay forward the success that we've had, because a lot of that success came from the Atlanta community, from the Save the Fox. So we felt a strong need to push that money back out. We have programming that's funded purely through ticket sales. We recapture that money and we return it to communities all over our state, but also, so you all know, the largest portion of that funds comes from our concession sales. So beer, wine, spirits, all kinds of food. It's a very large and lucrative business, and it really keeps Fox Theater Institute up and operating. Additionally, though, we sell Friends of the Fox memberships and all that money that we've raised. So far, we've raised about $1.5 million since we began that program 8 years ago, and that money also goes back into the building as well as into FTI. So since 2008, we've been able to give out $2.7 million in funding, primarily in Georgia, but some in the Southeast. And the programs that we have at Fox Theater Institute are grants, our Friends of the Fox program, our Georgia Presenters program, which is a statewide booking consortium that assists all theaters, historic and non-historic, of venues less than 800 seats, nonprofits, build and sustain the best performances all over our state, from as far south as Tybee Island to as far north as Hartwell. We have wonderful Georgia Presenters members, about 55. Then also we have a Fox in a Box education program, K through 5. We offer it 3 ways now: in person, virtual, and also through a partnership with the Georgia Library Service Program. The virtual really began because in COVID, we were going out into the schools and reaching a lot of students, and we no longer had that option, so we had to pivot and make that virtual. It's a free program. I encourage you, if you have friends and family who teach, who work in the schools, the Y's after school, please follow up with me about that education program. This is an overview map. This is the impact that we've been able to make across the state of Georgia. If you look at the first column, those are grant recipients. In the brown, in the blue are grant recipients and Georgia Presenters. So they receive both financial funding from us and technical assistance, and then our Georgia Presenters members. So those are the 3 areas which I would say we offer the most financial benefit. So this is probably the more fun stuff we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about some support and success that we've had. The Fox Theater Preservation Grants really have become our main work that we do out in all the counties and cities across our state. We're able to award a project up to $150,000 annually and support any of the following needs. So that can be securing and engineering for our architectural team that can provide planning and budgets. It can be completing preservation projects to repurpose a related structure. So it doesn't have to necessarily always be the theater itself. It can be an annex building. Many times, a lot of our theaters have outgrown their auditorium, and they have nowhere to do green rooms for their performers. They have nowhere to store their costumes. They want to get them off site, so there are problems with things like mold that often are found in historic buildings. So that can be for that as well. Also, we really encourage phased improvements over time. We work with most of our theaters 1 to 5 years, and it's a process. We always like, in all preservation, I think the thing that we've always preached is you plan first before you go in and start doing things to your building. It's always been the way we provide planning grants in advance. And then if your theater is not threatened, we can offer you money for acquisition for theater. These are all matching grants. Preservation grants are matching. So you have to invest some skin in the game when you come to us to ask for this funding. But we do provide some funding for that. Also, any property that's available for construction around you, meaning adaptive reuse, also especially if the project includes renovations or alterations that promote and really help secure that everything is part of the 1990 American with Disabilities Act is implemented. We have funded quite a few elevator projects. We've funded other items like that. We want to make sure that we know that people apply for these projects for their historic theaters. Also, the purchase and installation of equipment. We are really lucky and blessed at the Fox Theater that we have been able to really provide state-of-the-art listening. So, for instance, my mother-in-law finally, about 6 months ago, succumbed and bought hearing aids. And she came and had an app on her phone and downloaded that app and adjusted the hearing while she was at the show at the Fox. So it almost like was the actors were in her ears as she was watching the show. We have all full listening, and one of our goals at the Fox Theater through the Institute is to make sure that we can help install that equipment and make performances more accessible through sound, through equipment, also really through lighting improvements, through LED conversions, anything that makes that experience cleaner, safer, more comfortable for our patrons. We also have technical services grant. This is one of the 4 categories of grants, and these are unmatched funds. They're available annually. It's a $25,000 maximum. It could be for business planning and operations towards any kind of sustainability. Also leadership and effectiveness of staff, so any kind of staff development, board development, strategic planning for organizational growth. Many times theaters get to operating, they get moving, they get some success, and they don't have time to pause. And if they do have time to pause, their priority always isn't to fund strategic planning, is to fund restoration repair or listening devices or things that directly benefit in the moment the patrons. So this is really important for us to help them kind of stage out growth of their organization. Also trainings to encourage historic preservation practices like plaster repair, window restoration, things that other people in the community can come and engage with the theater and learn that practice. And then guiding technology, including upgrading any equipment, updating websites, updating any kind of projects that assist in the marketing and promotion of that theater. All the theaters that I'm showing you on these images have all received funding from the Fox Theater Institute as well. I mentioned before when we talked about preservation, actual work, the biggest and most important thing for us is that we study the building, that we assess the building, that we have a proper plan with the experts that are available. So with these historic structure studies and planning grants, what that really provides is up to $75,000 in matching funds to hire a preservation architect, to hire consultants to do a conservation plan for archives and collections. I would say out of the theaters that we work with statewide, less than 10% have an active archives. And if they have an archives, it's not in any kind of facility that's safe and protected, well ventilated, and rarely have any kind of database. So this is also funding that we love to really kind of prioritize. And then also planning for renovations or repurposing of a related structure. Again, not necessarily historic. If the structure supports the programming and function of the main building, it can be used for that. And we really do that to encourage the success of the organization and their ongoing success. Urgent emergency needs grants are unbelievably important, and when we started the Fox Theater, this was the main area which we responded to. Urgent or emergency support is available to historic theaters and related structures, really in emergency situations when an immediate need for unanticipated work is found. These grants can be for up to $75,000, and they're always unmatched. We never require a match. These funds can be for fire or water damage and natural disasters. Many of you probably watched the news. We had our second fire at the Fox this past summer. A small fire broke out in the restaurant again next next door to the Fox. You probably remember in '96, right before the Olympics, we had a terrible fire that really took out the whole East Ponce Bay 9 entrance of our building and had to be rebuilt. So for us, one of the things that we say at the Fox is that there's really very little we haven't survived. Imminent demolition, fires, water damage, and then now we've all survived a global pandemic together across the state. So we like to prioritize emergency grants because we know that those things are going to happen, especially in the tornado belt of our state in southwest Georgia. So also, just those natural disasters, also inherited disrepair. So when an organization acquires a historic building, what problems came with that and how we help them address it. And then imminent demolition. If we receive a request, usually that would come from a city official, someone between them and the theater that would bring attention to us that one of their theaters in their community might be demolished, we would be able to ask for these funds and get these funds and assist them. And then an option to purchase a structure temporarily or long term. So especially if there's going to be a major structural change to it, meaning they're going to possibly rip off the facade of the building where the historic marquee is and those type of things, that would be something where we would immediately kind of go in and assist them. This example on the right is, I know it looks like a house, but it's actually a theater in Albany, Georgia. I don't know if anyone's been there. It's the home of the Albany Theater, and it's a large addition that you can see in the photo. This had some sustained really bad wind and rain damage from tornado activity. We helped them secure some necessary updates and repairs. Again, on urgent and emergency grants, applicants can come to us for this grant simultaneous to technical assistance. We have 2 categories where you can apply at the same time. Again, a cash match is never required for these projects, and we do allow any of our applicants to use our emergency funds as a match for another organization's funds. Particularly, we have seen this a lot with Georgia Council for the Arts and South Base. If you can get more money from another organization, we always want you to use our money to achieve greater funding. If you can go to an organization and get an investment of $350,000, we always want you to take our investment and leverage that and use that to assist. So these are some before and after images of some success stories that we've had around the state. This is the DeSoto Theater up in Rome, Georgia. This is the very first grant that the Fox Theater Institute ever awarded for the arcade restoration. This was a project that would have probably been another 15 years of savings for DeSoto to get to the point where they could do this work. The craftsmen that do our work at the Fox were also used on this beautiful project, and if you haven't visited this theater, I would encourage you to do so. It's really one of the highlights of theaters in the North Georgia, and a great organization. It has sustained really the ongoing restoration and preservation of their building, also by having an anchor tenant. That has been a big key. They have a church that uses the theater on weekends, as well as the Rome Theater there. So that's one I think is worth visiting if you're out and about. Additionally, this is a project that came to us in Swainsboro, Georgia. We had not worked in that area of the state very much, west of Savannah. And this was a facade rehabilitation for the Carr Center in Swainsboro. This theater had been closed more than 40 years. It's a community theater. People in this county were having to go to Statesboro and other places around and not seeing fine arts in galleries, but also performing arts in this theater. We're really proud of this result, and they're going to open in 2024. And then this is the Ritz Theater, also known as the Schaefer Center in Toccoa, Georgia. A huge impact of the before and after. This was a very early grant for the Fox Theater Institute, about 2012. It received a planning grant for study and for all the historical research that took place before this work was done, as well as a stabilization grant, and then this work on rehabilitating the facade. Also a very active theater, part of our Georgia presenters, a very financially viable and successful theater. Many of you all visited any of these? Probably not. But I would encourage you to get out and see some of the programming in other parts of the state and visit some of these main streets. And then I'm going to talk now a little bit about DeKalb County and the heart of what we're doing here and how we can assess what we can do more research on. Again, the major preface that I did not do a deep dive on a lot of this research. And some of it came from archives, some of it came from online resources, and I would encourage you to know up front that I source many sites, and this is not my research. This is not my credit. So I want to begin by focusing on our own brand spotlight here at Stone Mountain, DeKalb County at the Art Station. How many of you have been there? It's an incredible organization just over in Stone Mountain, right off Main Street. It's located right there at 5384 Manor Drive. We previously funded a grant in 2019 that was for $57,000 for a preservation matching grant. This is a great nonprofit art center housed in the historic trolley station in the heart of Stone Mountain Village. It offers a theater, galleries, arts and performing arts classes, events, and a gift shop. So it really embraces the holistic approach that to keep everything going, you're going to have to sustain a true art center and make sure that you're providing income sources. It's also part of the National Register Historic District for Stone Mountain. Additionally, many of you probably, when I visited this theater the first time, I had no context of a historic photo. I went online and did some initial research. This was the historic railway power company built this as the historic trolley station in 1913. That's a very early photograph. The building was purchased in 1988 by DeKalb County to serve as the art center for the community. So this was a public-private partnership project in Stone Mountain. The art center had already been in the theater, had been pre-existing. They were looking for a more permanent home. And when a lot of communities come to us, they come to us looking for a place like this to have theater, to have art centers. And one of the beauties, I think, of Fox Theater Institute is we don't traditionally just fund historic theaters. We fund school auditoriums, we fund historic trolley stations. This past year, we had a grant at a historic firehouse in downtown Dalton, Georgia. You do not have to have an historic building of the original purpose of the theater. It does, however, have to be 50 years or older and eligible or listed for the National Register. So this, they began their first major capital campaign for the complete rehabilitation right after that. And then since then, they have done a second major capital campaign or restoration campaign. And they earn an income through their gallery spaces, their workshops, and their performances. Again, very similar to ours, where they take a percentage and they return it to the building. Our FTI grant that we gave them, the $57,000, was just a very small part. They raised $1.5 million in a historic theater renovation campaign that they completed recently. With our funding, we helped them install in the theater a 3-meter diameter turntable for their floor. So it was, again, goes back to what enhances the experience that came from that. And then hydraulic lifts, as well as the new soundboard. So anything that really increases that patron experience, we assist with that. So we're going to go back in history a little bit and talk about some of the theaters that no longer exist or exist in a different format here in DeKalb County. And Marissa and I, she spoke originally about some drawings that we have, and I'm going to touch on that a little bit. But the DeKalb Historic Theater that first comes to mind is the Decatur Theater, and that was at 527 North McDonough Street. It opened in September of 1940. It was later used as the Metropolitan Community Church until it was demolished in 1976. Now, I saw 3 different dates of demolition, but they were all within a few years range. And I was wondering if anyone here in the audience remembers going to this theater or remembers anything about it. I was hoping someone would. But it was known really air-conditioned buildings. This was one of the first air-conditioned buildings in downtown Decatur. There's a wonderful online archive that I would encourage you to look at, Decatur Theater Blogspot, which had so many outstanding photos of this theater and so much information. I would encourage you if you're interested. This is a superimposed location shot on the bottom right, and then an ad, and then some historic photos. It's really amazing to see how much we can find out just through the internet and get these images. In your mind, you know, you think, I didn't have access to really go to an archive before the presentation except our own at the Fox, and we did have a little bit of information, but of course primarily about the Fox. Again, that's the Historic Decatur Theater. And Marissa, remind me directionally, this way, right here. Thank you. And then I'm going to talk about the DeKalb. So, the DeKalb Theater, it was located at 130 West Ponce de Leon Avenue. It opened in August 1927. It was adjacent to the Candler Hotel, which if you look at that bottom left photo, I suppose that was the hotel to the right. I don't know if anybody can qualify that that's true, but that would make sense to me. The other wonderful thing about this theater is because it was operated later by the Lucas and Jenkins Theater Company, the Fox Theater was at one point operated by the Lucas and Jenkins Theater. It was also operated by the Georgia Theater Company. It was also operated by William Fox. It originally, of course, was built as a shrine auditorium and complex. So we share with this theater the past of being operated, and that's why we have these drawings in our collection. So what we decided to do in 2018 when we were running out of some space was we had all the drawings from all the Lucas and Jenkins theaters from their group, and we decided to deassess those and give them to other organizations where people could use them for research. Some of those were in North Carolina, some were in South Carolina, some here in Georgia, but we were excited to have that gift and share that with the DeKalb History Center. Also, the archives, really, we have a lot of scanned images of the drawings, but we did not have any photographs in our collection, which I was surprised. But these are the photographs that I could find online, and very prominent, beautiful marquee. I mean, just stunning, you know. And then later on, some of the information that I found said it became the Hobby House before demolition. I don't know if anybody remembers the Hobby House, but it became that. This is the Belvedere Theater. I wanted to also look at theaters that were outside of Decatur and out in the county, and really focus on how that played out during the amount of people that moved from Atlanta into DeKalb County, as you know, in the 60s, 70s, expanded all the suburbs, and with those became historic theaters at that time. They're now considered historic. This was at 1346 Columbia Drive. It opened in 1964, and when I say it's still standing in the surrounding vacant shopping center, I'm being extremely liberal in that comment because it is still encased in some finished product, but it does not, you cannot tell where it is. I mean, it's, you know, on Google Earth shots, it was a big, massive. So if you drive by there, just know that it's tucked away in there somewhere. Many neighborhoods, as I said, they expanded as people moved out into the city centers, out of the city centers into the suburbs. And it's really unknown. I could not find a last date of operation. This is a beautiful photo at the top. Of the outside at night, and then one of the later photos right before it was kind of covered up and facade covering an interior. And then you can see these ads. One of the things that's really pretty easy to find in article research is advertisements. And even for us at the Fox, a large core of what we have is advertisements going back as far as 1931. We've been very fortunate to have people have these things and donate them to us. But again, that's the Belvedere Theater. This is Toco Hills, and I wanted to include one that I remember going to and that I enjoyed. It's located, it is still there. You can see this awful photo on the bottom right of what remains. It's probably, it looks like it was taken during a cellular And, you know, the date for National Register eligibility is now 1973. So if this theater were intact and still being used, it would be eligible potentially for the National Register, which is kind of hard to believe, but it is. And it was the largest one screen in the metro Atlanta area, second to the Fox Theater. It had 800 seats. And I'll be honest with you, I don't remember it being that large. But it's also been 20 years since I was inside of it. It closed in 2000, and of course, you know, it was operated by the LaFont chain. It was built on Meiselman, though, and it's remembered as probably one of Atlanta's first art house cinemas, similar to the Terra Theater and the Plaza Theater and content screening. It really was always part of kind of that cutting-edge art film. This is an old photo I love in the middle of the sign that's been redone at Toco Hills, and then what the theater looked like on the left. I'm sure lots of you went to this theater. This was a great, it was a great movie theater, and it had amazing sound, and yeah, just a real jewel. I've missed going there. A few others I just wanted to mention for your own interest if you'd like to do research on your own. The Town Cinema, which is reopened, you know, it's a few different times in Avondale Estates, but is doing well. We're so happy they're open, they're functioning. Now primarily music venue, but just a great, I love that marquee. It's so amazing to still drive down and see that. It's just really still such a vestige of that, and I love it. And then also the Brook Run Theater, which I did a little research on in Dunwoody. It was part of a larger complex. There's quite a bit of online information about that if you're interested. And then the African American built Ritz Theater that was here in Decatur. I actually found this photo on the left from the City of Decatur website, and they mentioned the African American built Ritz Theater. That, of course, you might not know, but the Bailey Theaters was the first big African American built business theater company that existed all across Atlanta and had numerous theaters in Atlanta, including the Ashby Theater, which is still there in some form, and they're looking to hopefully do some kind of rehabilitation with that in West End. And then others that might exist that we're not aware of in Lithonia, Clarkston, and Tucker. You know, there may be some that are hidden in those Main Street downtowns that are other facades that we don't know. But I would encourage you to visit cinematreasures.org. It's a wonderful site that has historic photos of theaters nationally and internationally, and then look at some of these great advertisements. I wanted to tell you a little bit about our own archives and our collections and our research at the Fox. We consider our building a living history museum. We have 98% of our original furniture inventory. That was really maintained and kept because we were closed for a very brief period of time, and people were there to retain those pieces, work on them, and keep them really in great shape. So when you go to the Fox and you sit on the furniture in the lobbies, that's true Fox Theater furniture. It's not replicas. We also have so much of our historic lighting that's still there. Of course, our amazing Mighty Moog 1929 Moeller organ, the second largest theater organ in the country to Radio City Music Hall. It just received a huge rehabilitation in 2020, about a $500,000 project that our board invested in. It sounds better than I think it has probably in my lifetime. And then we have a phenomenal poster collection with thousands and thousands and thousands of signed autograph posters from Broadway shows, from presidential visits, from any kind of civic engagement, anything like that. We're so fortunate to have those. Not as much of it scanned as we would like, but we're making progress. Also in our archives exclusively, and we do have an archives within our building that has been worked on since 1996, and I wonder if anybody knows why that year is pivotal when our archives began. It's the fire that began our archives. The archives were in the basement of the Fox Theater, in the sub-basement, in a room that was sealed up with things in filing cabinets, and absorbing that much water during the sprinkler, and when they had to come through the Grand Salon to put out that fire, that that was a huge wake-up call to the staff at the Fox Theater that we can't have this continue. So we did build our own in-house archives. And we have amazing photography collections, the William Dunn Photography Collection, which is family bestowed to us, as well as the family of T.H. Reed, that gives so many amazing historical perspectives of our building. Also, again, we have the Georgia Theater records and architectural drawings. We have Lucas and Jenkins Theater records and architectural drawings. We have original Fox Theater architectural drawings from the firm that built the Fox Theater. Of course, those have all been scanned. Copies are out that we keep outside of our building. I will say that we keep other things in holdings to ensure their safety should something happen to the Fox Theater again. And then I think most unknown probably is that we have really just boundless volumes, photography, memorabilia of our Save the Fox campaign in the 1970s. And we have updated since 2019 to a database accessed in memory, where now we have most of our collection moving towards being scanned and kept and being able to, we have some limited use to that database for research. So we have some great upcoming events. Just when I wrap up, I want to tell you all about some things that are going to be happening at the Fox. We'll be hosting the League of Historic American Theaters Southeast Regional Conference. It's a gathering of almost 200 individuals that protect, grow, nurture, share, do everything with their historic theaters like we do. They'll be here with us in April. We're so honored. We hosted their national conference in 2008, and we'll again host their national conference in 2028, leading up to our centennial celebration in 2029. We also have a tremendous fundraiser concert where all the proceeds go back into Fox Theater Institute funds to go back to the theaters across the state. That's May 13th. You can see the lineup there. We'll have a silent auction. And then we'll return this year to the Atlanta History Center for our Archives Night. We hosted our first Archives Night last year. We'll do that again on June 20th. That's a ticketed event with our members from both the Atlanta History Center and the Fox Theater coming together, and it's open to the public. Please buy tickets ahead of time. Last year we sold out. And then we return, which I know many of you have enjoyed over the years, in late summer with the Coca-Cola Summer Film Festival. These are some upcoming events that might interest you to get a sense. And then if you do decide to come to the film festival, we always offer tours before the festival for the shows, and we sell those in advance. A couple other things I just want to mention that I'd love to take questions. We will be turning 100 in 2029. We've already started planning our centennial celebration. I hope you will all take part of it. We'll have lots of public activities. We hope to do a big Rock the Block concert again. We hope to offer more than at least 10 blockbuster shows with global artists to celebrate our building being 100 years old and our investment in the city. And then, you know, I would love for you to stay in touch. If you have questions, if you think of a project that might, maybe from your hometown or another part of the state, that might benefit from these grants or from being part of Georgia Presenters, we would love for you to stay in touch. I brought 2 raffle prizes today that I would love to give out. Let me grab this. And I always come up with a trivia question. And I'm going to ask Marissa to help me with my spotter. In both is some historic postcards, as well as a pass for 2 for a tour of the Fox Theater. And we would love for you to come. You can pre-book those tickets ahead of time. Our tours are Mondays, Thursdays, and Saturdays. So I'm going to ask this first one. How many millions of dollars has the Fox Theater Institute given to across the state of Georgia? Mr. Thomas, he's looking at his listener award. Listener award. I love it. 2.7. How many 2.7? 2.7. Right. Let's see. We think of another number. This one I mentioned briefly, but after the Fox Theater was opened as the Shrine Auditorium, who was the first movie mogul that opened the Fox here? The first name. First name of Mr. Fox. Anybody? All right. Let me think of another one. This one's always a winner. Who attended anything at the Fox in the 1960s? Raise your hand. All right, you're the first one to stop. I have said who attended something in the Fox in the 1940s, and lots of hands have gone up before, which I absolutely love hearing those stories. I have to say the best part of my job, hands down, is hearing people's Fox Theater stories all over the Southeast. It's my favorite thing when someone tells me, and the stories can get pretty racy, they can get pretty hilarious. There are all kinds. So, does anybody have any questions that they'd like to ask about the Fox?
I have a comment on the question. One is, you include the neighborhood theater that used to be behind where the police station is now, Atlantic Avenue.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you.
It was called the neighborhood.
The neighborhood theater?
Playhouse.
Oh, okay.
And it was right behind what was then Beacon Hill, where they were dancing. Where the police station is now.
Oh, wonderful. Okay. Thank you.
Did anybody else not notice the place there?
Thank you.
No, it was a theater.
Yeah, it can be either. We work with movies and
a live theater.
Neighborhood theater. Okay.
My question is, are you still ending the film series of the summer with Gone with the Wind?
We only do Gone with the Wind at big anniversary intervals now. And we're trying to choose things that hit other anniversaries, Wizard of Oz turned 80. We had that one, The Godfather, last summer. So we're trying to move towards other movies, but we do have it. We used to have it annually, but we do start the film festival with the theme being played, I think, almost every year on Mighty Mo. That doesn't seem to go away at all. Any other questions?
I have a question.
Yeah.
And a comment. You said that it can be any performing arts that is on the register or eligible.
Yep, so it can be a school, but the only thing we can fund in that school is the auditorium itself. We won't fund the wings for you. We'll fund the auditorium. In the fire station, they converted it into that. I went to one in Hartwell recently that was an old feed store that had been turned. So it needs to be historic. It needs to have, some kind of promise of an anchor tenant, meaning a dance company, a playhouse, a film tenant, something like that. And really, for 2 of the programs, they're matching grants. But all of our information is on our website, and please take a look because we have an interactive map where you can see every project we've funded in Georgia, but you can also go to their website to see what they're doing, which is, I think, even more interesting.
And then my other comment was, and this may exist, but I don't know about it. Is there tours of the Fox that's backstage?
Yes.
Or dressing room? And okay, so that does exist, and we can just look that up as well.
Yes, absolutely. So I'll tell you a little bit about our tours. We have our architectural tours. We have a behind-the-scenes tour that's usually given 4 times a month. And then we also have once a month now a Mighty Mo intensive tour, as well as a presentation of Mighty Mo. So lots of opportunities there. Thank you.
You're doing Phoenix Lives this year too? Are you doing Phoenix Lives?
Yes, we had Phoenix Lives yesterday actually. It sold out. It's, I think 5 tours. We were so excited. Yes, Ken. Really? Which is the building still there?
It's just the space between the former pizza place and now the that wide parking, that was the theater.
Oh wow, I
They
didn't
were
know
in
that.
about 1976 and then that went.
Well, we are working on some theaters here in Atlanta. I mentioned the Ashby in West End, but also, and I know Melissa and the team here have been working, but the Madison Theater in East Atlanta is looking to rehabilitate and reopen their historic theater, and we've been involved with them. It's still privately held, but they have formed a friends group, so there's a lot of effort around that. And then, of course, recently we're all encouraged because Chris Escobar at the Terra at the Plaza has formally gone into business at the Terra. So, you know, we think of the Terra as being a new theater, but the Terra has long passed the marker of being that. So, yes, sir.
You have archive possession, something on the list of Prince Charles, 1978 clocks.
We do. It's in the archives. It's documented. Yes, absolutely. And there are some photos of that. I would say one of the most interesting visits, I think, Ken, is President Roosevelt's visit to commemorate the Oglethorpe graduation at the Fox Theater. And he gave a speech and awarded the diplomas. And that one is really pretty fantastic. Yeah, we've been so fortunate to have so many dignitaries and amazing individuals visit us, not just, you know, musical artists, but people from all over the world. Well, thank you.